Hey, what's up, everybody? We want to welcome you to Couples Connect. And with this episode, we have two great guests that are here with us. They are a blended family, just like us. So we're really excited about that. So we want to welcome Garret and Chelsea. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Great to be here. Appreciate the chance to talk.
Of course. No, we appreciate you guys. I mean, you took the time out to kind of just take a risk and meet us. We met each other through the social media platform because we kind of both have the same mission, right? So thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you guys. And we know that you guys have an organization called Transform Couples, and you guys are out here as well trying to connect people, build healthy families and healthy relationships. And so we are super excited to be talking to you today.
Yeah.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah, great, guys. So we're going to jump right in. Tell us, if you can, in a snapshot, a little bit about you guys, what you have going on. We would love to hear your backstory.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Garret. This is Chelsea, and we're a blended family, like you said. We've been together coming up on 7 years.
Well, we're both 6.5.
6.5 years. Yeah. We will be celebrating our 1-year wedding anniversary this month.
Oh, congratulations.
Nice. Thank you. Super exciting. We've got 3 boys between us. So I have the youngest boy of the mix, and Chelsea has the middle and the oldest boys. They are 11, 12, and 13. So there is a ton of testosterone running around.
Right, it's busy. It's
super not busy. Enough estrogen.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you want the estrogen, because we have a lot of estrogen over here.
It's kind of the reverse on our side. We have mostly girls, 3 girls and 2 boys. So they kind of, we're outnumbered at times, so.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we've adjusted, and since the beginning of our relationship, we've acknowledged that, our relationship is different. Different in a good way, though, and different in the sense that, we didn't date each other separately without children. Mm-hmm. Our entire relationship, we have been navigating the reality that is blended. Mm-hmm. And I think, you guys can relate to that. A lot of the people probably watching can relate to that. And really what we're trying to do through Transform Couples and through relationship coaching is to really switch the mindset and the belief that blended families are kind of this sign of failure or this stigma around what is a blended family. And Chelsea made a great point a couple of weeks back when we were speaking that we really want to, and we believe it's our mission and our purpose, to normalize the reality that is blended families. Mm-hmm. In that through the failure of a relationship, it doesn't mean that you're a bad mom, a bad dad, a bad partner, a bad parent. Yeah. It means that you're human and that you are learning and growing. And we've found in the people that we've talked to in blended families, a lot of them feel as though they are a failure. Mm-hmm. But no one is a failure. And just because you're in a blended family does not mean that you are not normal.
That's right. It's normal for you.
Exactly.
It's your normal.
Yeah.
And there are more blended families starting to happen and be created in this world because of the breakdown of first-time marriages. Mm-hmm. So when Chelsea made that comment a couple of weeks back, it was an aha moment for us in that, blended families aren't a sign of failure. They are normal, and there isn't a stigma, or there shouldn't be a reason to hold a stigma around them. So that's really what we believe is our purpose and our mission. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're here building a platform, talking with the two of you and sharing some of the information that we've learned that can help others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. And I would even see, because, I know you guys mentioned trying to change the, just the concept and the thought process around blended families. I would even think that statistically, we probably are, in the area where there are more blended families than there are not. Mm-hmm. So it's really like we got to kind of get our minds to catch up with what's really happening in society, you know?
Exactly. I
definitely.
read a statistic the other day that divorce rates in the United States have skyrocketed since the beginning of COVID. And that, so even if we might be the minority right now in terms of blended families, we sure as heck aren't going to be the minority in the future. And it's a really sad reality, but we also want to be people who support couples that are going through those transitions and helping them to realize that, you know what, just because, you know, and this is a reality, but just because your marriage ended during COVID doesn't mean that you can't be happy moving forward, you know? And because it's a season that we're moving into, and it's a really unfortunate season, but it's a reality.
Yeah, definitely is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love what you guys said about not seeing it as a failure, right? Because it can feel that. I mean, it can feel that way. You go through your emotions of the ending of a relationship, but there is still, like you said, life beyond that. And I have a question for you. And I know for Akita and I, when we were dating, you know, we both brought children to the mix. So how is that for you in dating with children and coming together versus, you know, what you probably did prior, you know, in your prior relationship?
Yeah. So for me, coming into a relationship with kids, we were actually fortunate at the time when we first started dating that both of our kids were spending time with their other respective bio parents. So, you know, we were able to really find balance in that. It's not something that all parents have, but we were fortunate coming into the relationship that, you know, my sons were going to their dads at the time for a week at a time, and Garrett's son was going to his mom's for a period of time. So when we first started, we really, we didn't want to bring our kids into it right away. So we used our alone time as alone time to get to know one another, to really kind of get a feel for the relationship, to see if it was something worth bringing our kids into, and just exploring kind of what that was going to look like. So when we did introduce our kids, in the beginning, we actually were a little sneaky. We told them that we were work friends and that we worked together, and obviously they were young enough, they bought it. So just because we were still trying to figure everything out too, right? So I think that for us, we really had to, you know, get a really strong sense of where the relationship was heading before we got the kids involved. And then by that time, we had already been friends and hanging out together and having dinners together and like involving them on a friendship level, that when we kind of got to the point, it was almost like they had kind of got to that point where they're like, are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend? Are you guys going to be boyfriend? And we're like, well, what if we told you that we are boyfriend and girlfriend? How would that make you feel? You know? And so, yeah, I mean, I think for us, it was all about balance. It was also about protecting our respective kids too, and not, you know, making sure that the person that you're dating was the right person, or not like that it was going in a positive direction before introducing the kids. But yeah, and then just there was a bit of excitement with the sneakiness too, right?
Yeah. I know the kids were probably like, how many business meetings you gonna have, Mom? Like, right?
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And being intentional with our time, you know, I think what Chelsea's speaking to is really around intentionality, in that we knew the blocks of time when we didn't have our sons. So we knew when we could schedule things. And in blended families, I mean, the reality is you're probably trying to juggle a visitation or an access agreement with another parent. So we were very protective of our kids in that, like Chelsea said, we didn't want to push anything on them. And so we still really wanted to spend time with each other, but we spent more time together when it was just the two of us versus when it was all five of us. And we did that by choice, to protect them, but also, as Chelsea mentioned, to make sure that we were in a place where we saw a future together. And I think a lot of blended families sometimes rush into that because it feels amazing. You come out of a relationship that's flat, that's boring, that's stale, that's angry, that's a bunch of negative.
Yeah.
And you don't think you're ever going to be loved again.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you meet someone who appreciates you, wants to be with you. They compliment you. they want to look good for you, and all of a sudden you maybe sometimes get a little selfish when you really still have to think about your kids and their livelihood and their well-being. So we were patient and intentional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's so important too, because I mean, every family is different and they have their own lives and things like that. But I don't know, we feel like, you know, you really have to have that time where you feel each other out. You know, ask your important questions. You're in your evaluation period, you know, to see if they meet all the qualifications and whatnot. And that really helps. It really helps send the right message to your kids too.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just as, you know, for obvious reasons, you don't want them to be around, you know, this person this week, another person next week. And,
Mhm.
you know, it doesn't send the right message. So I think that that is really key to being successful.
Mhm.
You know, when you do have those conversations like, oh, are you dating him? Or is this your boyfriend? Like, you don't want to have that same conversation with like 5 different people. You know what I'm saying?
Bad
Heck
idea.
no.
Yeah, no.
Heck no.
Yeah. So sometimes we got to be creative.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if we didn't work together, so we couldn't say that we
Well,
were.
we
Yeah, no
did.
excuse.
Remember, I was selling life insurance.
Oh, that's right.
I was trying to sell
That's
him
right.
life insurance.
Yeah. So she was part of like those pyramid life insurance.
I had my life insurance license.
You
That
do.
wasn't pyramid.
Well, whatever it was.
Okay.
She was trying to
Recruit him.
recruit me.
Right.
Yes.
Because you know, I'm an entrepreneur, and you know, I was at the time I was like, you know,
Recruitable.
recruitable.
Mhm. Yes, yes, you were.
I was in between jobs. No, just
No.
kidding. but yeah, that's how we kind of started getting to know each other. And you know, sometimes we would have meetings at our house. It wasn't just me; it was a few other people too. And we actually we weren't like interested in each other before then.
Right.
It was kind of like us kind of working together where we kind of started becoming attracted to each other. So
Yeah. But
Very
we
true.
did, I think that's so key what you said about making sure, like, not being so caught up in like the love that you're feeling and the excitement that you're
Yeah.
feeling because something has been dead for so long and now it's like alive, and forgetting about the kids.
Yeah.
Because I think that in the beginning for us, we did that. We did the same thing you guys did. And then we kind of brought the kids in, and I think everybody was kind of on a high. But by like the first or second year of marriage, we realized that this was a choice that we had made. And like they didn't necessarily make the
They didn't
choice,
have a choice,
and
yeah.
neither did our outside families or like our extended families.
Right.
Yeah.
So how was that for you guys? Because I think sometimes
You forget like you're not just marrying each other, but like and the kids, but even outside of that, you have uncles and aunts and grandparents and you know close friends and those things. So like, how did you guys adjust with that?
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate. Garrett and I both have really good support systems when it comes to our family. Like Garrett's mom from the very beginning was like really accepting of me and my boys, and my parents were always really accepting of Garrett and Lucas. And so I think for us, like the biggest thing was having to, I don't know, you kind of still have to go through that, like, I want to call it like a vetting process where you're like, okay, you know, is this person gonna mesh well with, you know, the dynamic of what is my family? And it's not always as easy. I feel like in really simple answer, like I feel like we really had it easy when it came to some of the outside things. The biggest thing for us was the exes. So I don't know if that's going to be a separate question or not, but
Let's
to
go
be
there.
honest
Yep.
with you, like my ex struggles really hard with addiction and mental health issues. So him and I are really high conflict, or we were in the beginning.
Him more so.
Well, I mean, yeah, I
By default, we are, because he's part of the relationship in the blended family dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's created a lot of changes in terms of like Chelsea's side of the blended family. So,
yeah.
but that has only come about in the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, it's always been an issue, even since the beginning, because like my kids would go to their dads for a week at a time, and then they'd come home, and then you're dealing with the fallout of all of that, right?
Yeah.
But then in Garrett's situation, I mean, he's very fortunate. He has a very amicable relationship with his ex-wife. They have a really great co-parenting relationship. So it's almost kind of like polar opposites in the sense. You know, they have like a textbook, you know, best case scenario co-parenting relationship. And I definitely don't think I have like worst case scenario, because I've seen worst case scenario and it can get a lot uglier than what I have. So I'm blessed for that, but it's definitely not ideal. So I think for us, that was the biggest adjustment for us. I mean, our families were amazing. Our kids were, you know, for the most part, they were, like you said, they didn't get to choose. So we are having to deal with that as well. But overall, we've been really lucky. Yeah.
That ex's situation, we were kind of similar. I had high conflict.
Almost pretty close, pretty similar with you guys, because my son's mother and her side of the family, it was a pretty, you know, we pretty for the most part got along and meshed well, but it wasn't the same scenario for Tisha. It was a little, what did you say, high conflict?
Right. That
so
is a great word.
Yeah, it was high conflict situation. So
how did you so Chelsea, how were you able to co-parent? Like, how did you keep, I guess, the co-parenting from invading or from causing difficulties within your marriage? Because I know for us, I actually had to learn, and I learned from my husband, how to communicate with my ex, because like men know how to talk to men better. Than I had initially realized, because I was so used to the back and forth. Like I was so used to dealing with him a certain kind of way. And we would just be going at it. Everything would pull my strings. And
a person on the opposite spectrum, they know they know things about you. They know what they can say to trigger certain emotions. You know what I mean? So I think so yeah, I mean, I think when you have somebody who has been with you, you know, either married to you or dating for a long time, they know certain things about you that, you know, can trigger your emotions or trigger your anger and things like that. So
he really taught me, like, you don't have to respond to everything in the moment. You don't have to respond this particular way. You don't have to tell that person everything. And that was something that I realized that I needed.
Because let me tell you, we get a text and she was like, "What?" And then she'd be like, "Oh, and I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" Like,
emotional response. I hear you.
True.
Exactly. And I'm like, "Hey, check this out. You don't have to say anything." And this is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how was that for you guys? How did you deal with that?
Almost exactly the same. I would say for sure, because the thing is that in the beginning, I used to think that I had to like do it all on my own. So I would deal with my own stuff but then indirectly, it's affecting my mood. It's affecting my patience. It's affecting all this stuff. So when Garret was able to come in and be like, "Okay, you realize that like, he's just looking for a response. He's just looking to get under your skin." Now, it's interesting because there were other times where, you know, I would say to Garret, "Well, no, she's just trying to control you. You know, she's just trying to, you know," so it was kind of like we recognized things in the cycle of each other that maybe we were like not necessarily consciously aware of. And we were able to help each other through that. And we were able to kind of like pick those things up when the other person wasn't able to. So I feel like it was a really good, like that there was a really good balance that occurred, that, you know, if I noticed, "Hey, listen, like you don't have to pick up her call at 11:30 at night or whatever." Right. And then for me on the other side, it was like, "Well, you don't have to respond to that nasty message. Like, don't even give him a time of day, you know?" And so we would hold each other kind of accountable to that. And I feel like, you know, having that support and knowing that the other person is there for you is really important. And I think that you have to be open to that.
Yeah, it was really like a lesson in boundaries both ways, right? I mean, in my case, you know, there was an ex who was almost trying to be too involved, and Chelsea made it very clear how she felt about it, where it was like, she doesn't need to be messaging you about that.
Or calling
And
4 times a day.
and I had to reflect a little bit as well and say to myself, okay, you're right. I am now with you. I do not have an obligation to her. I have an obligation to my son.
Yeah.
We have an obligation to parent, but I'm not to her what I used to be, and I never will be again. And so I had to learn to put that boundary in place. No different than I had to tell Chelsea, like, he's looking for something.
Yeah.
He wants to trigger you because he knows what to say. He knows what words to use. He knows exactly what makes you go off. And if you feed that fire, you're just making him happy on the other side. He's sitting there laughing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So boundaries was really what we both needed to learn about, because you teach people how to treat you. And we both had to really reflect and think about that in a really deep way.
Yeah, that is like so good. And just the word about boundaries, I think it's a really good way to look at it, because we have a natural tendency to want to kind of defend our integrity or defend our character to people. So when they talk against that, then we're like, oh, wait a minute, I got to tell you about yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think the balance you guys add to each other is like reminding, like, you don't have to defend yourself to this person anymore. Like, you don't, that's a boundary that you don't have to cross. It doesn't matter what they think of you or whatever the case may be, because you're validated here in this circle, right? And not outside of that circle. So,
and I love that Chelsea said, being open to it.
Yeah.
And then coming from that mentality of having to do it by yourself and take it on by yourself, to just being open to the help, and just knowing that now you're together, you know,
Right.
you're not doing this by yourself.
Yeah.
That was really great.
Yeah.
To be
Big
able to
learnings.
get to that.
Big
Yeah.
learnings.
Yeah.
Always learning every day.
Yes. Yes. Always a empty cup, but they say a full cup can never be filled. So,
Right.
yep. Yep.
So going from co-parenting, figuring out how to co-parent with the exes, and now you're trying to co-parent together. And I'm sure there's other influences. People have been raised differently, different ways of disciplining. How are you guys able to like navigate that space?
Yeah, definitely. We, the number one thing that we prioritize when it comes to parenting in general together under the same roof is spending one-on-one time with our respective bio children. So that's number one, like making sure that your kids still know that you love them, you're there for them, you're supporting them. You know, it gives them that attention that they crave, that they want, that maybe they feel that they lost when you got together with your current, like with your partner.
Yeah.
So that's number one, and making sure that, you know, that those relationships are really strong and they're kind of put at the forefront. And then you kind of go into the other thing where you're building relationships with your stepchildren. And, you know, you ultimately want those kids to know that you're there for them, you support them, you are there to be, you know, their friend, to give them advice. You know, I know that my boys have asked Garret for all kinds of man advice that otherwise they weren't getting from their own dad. And I'm so grateful for that, because I don't even know how I would have reacted. I would have, like, there's certain things that Garrett's like, yeah, we just had some man talk. I'm like, I don't want to know. You go ahead. Do you. But no, honestly, I think that's the biggest thing, is to not try to step into a bio parent role with your stepkids. So that each bio parent needs to take care. And in terms of discipline, and I know that that's potentially a different question, but like in terms of taking care of your respective children and parenting them and that kind of thing, I think that it's really important that, you know, each parent does it for their own bio children, but then they also work really hard to build those relationships and those bonds between, you know, with them and their stepkids. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a balance. Definitely is a balance. And I know, because, you know, she has girls and I've never had girls, and I didn't know how to,
he didn't realize just how much we talk.
I mean, there's a lot of
how many opinions we have,
right.
And like,
because, you know,
this is not over, the conversation continues.
I'm used to like, you know, telling my son, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z and he
Yeah.
goes and does X, Y,
Like,
and Z.
okay, all right.
So I tell the girls, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, same thing. And it's just like, well, why? Why do you want me to do X, Y, and Z? And if I
Yeah.
does X, how is that going to affect Z? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like, Tisha, can you come take care of this?
Why are we still talking
Right.
about this?
Like, why is this a discussion? I don't understand. Like, what?
True.
But at that point, I realized that there were certain conversations that I had to be like, ask my wife to kind of help, and kind of take, control of, because
Mhm.
I don't know, it wouldn't have been received in the same way for me in certain aspects coming from a man, and I think her being there, I like the bio parent, I love that.
Yeah.
Being their bio parent, that it would be more receptive coming from her,
Yeah. I think a couple of things that listening to you guys talk, what I'm reminded of,
Mhm.
because it's been like 13 years now. So trying to like go
Replay
back,
all of the,
is that I think in my other marriage, I was a step parent. Not I think I was. I was a step parent, and that relationship with the bio parent was horrible, right? So I knew going into this that I wanted to be super intentional
Yeah.
with building with his son's mom,
Right.
Right.
and her being open to that. If you have a
Right.
parent that is open to that.
Yeah.
And so I was like super intentional with not wanting to feel like I was replacing her. Like I already got 3, like I'm not trying to
She does not have any more. Nope.
Right? Yeah.
I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
replace, and just just making sure that she knew that she was respected in
Yeah.
that space.
Mhm.
And let me just say that, to all the blended families out there, because of that, and my son's mom, being willing to kind of collaborate with my wife, it made everything so much easier. And not just for us, but for the kids. Like, it made their life less stressful, less drama going on. So
Yeah.
like blended families out there, like it really is like you have to think about the kids
Right.
and not yourselves, because it does go a long way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge, and it's such a reality check when you do start to prioritize and put the kids at the forefront when you're thinking about how you're responding and what you're doing. I know in the past couple of weeks, we've had instances in our home where, I've had to consciously remind myself, okay, Garret,
Yeah.
even though their dad isn't present
Yeah.
and they don't have their bio father in their life, you are never going to be that. There's no sense trying it. You're going to create more resistance.
Mhm.
Just step back and be their friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be someone to listen to talk with. And Chelsea and I have talked about it probably a half a dozen times in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I am having those aha moments, and it's so refreshing to hear that you guys have been there, because you're a lot further along in your relationship in terms of being blended. So a lot of these things that are coming up for me right now personally that Chelsea and I are talking about, I know are going to have benefit long term and down the road. Right now it may feel frustrating, but there is an end game here, and it's a process.
Mhm.
It's a roller coaster. It's going to go up and down. It's going to do 360s, but it is going to get us to a better place in the long run. So I think that's a great point that you make, Akita.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I like the roller coaster analogy, because it seems like chaos when you're going through it, but somehow, it does even out, and it does, finish the ride, and you kind of see that the things that you went through really help develop and build who you are,
Yes.
And I would even say that, your kids, your stepkids, they look at what you do more than what you say. They look at how you treat your spouse. They look at how you communicate with them. And that probably goes a longer way than it does just like arguing back and forth, with your kids about something. So,
And I think too, trying to like defend yourself,
yeah.
and because you're not going to be able to replace. I don't even care how like horrible the parent may be.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to replace them. They're always going to love their biological parent, as they should, But I think that what Akita really worked on, it took like a while, but I think what he had to work on was not taking things personal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? Because
yeah, I mean, and not to sound not to sound insensitive, because it wasn't insensitive. It was kind of to help my emotions. Was when things like that would happen, I would laugh about it. You
Oh,
know what I
really?
mean? Like if somebody, if one of the girls got upset at me, or there were times where you would find little letters where they would write in their journal, and I shouldn't say this, but
I saw all kinds of
look,
stuff.
but where they
Big
would
fat
say,
elephant.
where they would say, out of anger, some mean things about you, and if I took that personally, like that would put me in a real dark place or whatever. So I just had to laugh about it, because I knew that's not how they really felt. Was what they were dealing with at the time. So
Yeah.
I just
I
laughed.
forgot about that. I don't
You
even
just
think I
laugh.
know.
I mean, you take it seriously, you know what I mean, and you want to be able to address it, but you just gotta laugh at it. You gotta laugh at it and move on.
Yeah.
Love that. And I really feel that, because you can internalize a lot of that and go into a place mentally where you don't feel confident as a human, you don't feel as though you have value, and then you start to really second guess a lot of things.
Mhm.
So I'm going to start laughing. I love
Yeah.
that advice. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's like we've had discussions where it's like, oh, I hate this place, I want to leave.
No,
And
he has, okay, funny story, because I don't want you to think that we were just like perfectly doing this thing.
No.
He has, like, when they would say stuff like, I want to leave. And I think the other thing too, I know I'm like running around here, but is that when you have an option to go somewhere else, or you think you have an option to go somewhere else, that kind of opens up a lot of doors. It makes people maybe a little bit more bolder about some of the things that they say.
Especially as the older they get.
Then
it's
So when they think they know stuff, but I remember one of them were like, I can't stand being here. I'm not going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
He took the mattress outside, put it on the lawn. He was like, you want to go?
That was earlier on, Garrett. That was earlier on. I was still figuring things out.
Yeah.
I wasn't laughing at that time. See, that's what I started laughing after that.
Yes.
It helped.
It's true. Honestly, like I think if blended families think that people like us and people like you are like perfect, they would love to. They'd be so entertained to be a fly on the wall at certain points, because it's like, oh, maybe that is normal. Oh, maybe, putting all their stuff out on the lawn for a day and a half is like what had to happen, and we've noticed that too, where like if our kids, because my kids don't go to their dads anymore, but especially with Garrett's little guy, there has been times where if he feels uncomfortable in a situation or something like that, it's like, I want to go to mom's. I want to go to my mom's. I'm going to my mom's. And it's just like, okay, how do we bring it back, and how do we make it so that you do feel okay or comfortable or whatever it is? And it helps you to kind of work through those things. But I totally can relate to knowing that there's another option. We've been down
It's a lot different now, and I don't throw furniture or
no. Well, you know what else also really helped us that I'm thinking about now is that at one point we were youth pastors. And so we dealt with a lot of teenagers. Yeah. And I think this was just so like helpful. This was so like, because we were like, no, we don't want to do this. Like, we don't. But I remember our pastor at the time telling us like, you don't know how much this is going to help you. And our kids were still younger. They weren't quite teenagers yet. Yeah. But I think dealing with other youth and like just all parents deal with stuff, right? And it's not necessarily because we're blended that we're going to have some issues, but I mean, there are some other elements.
Blended or not blended, parents and kids are always going to be a dynamic that is challenging, always going to be a dynamic that's challenging. And I think for us too, having been youth pastors, we got a chance to hear firsthand other teens who are going through the same things
and talk to parents
and
then it just really helped us be intentional about creating a space for them in our house, our kids, to have those conversations. And so
that helps.
So therapy.
In therapy. Now in therapy. So now we laugh. Now we laugh about it.
Now it's funny.
Yeah.
I
It
love
wasn't
it.
funny then.
No.
So good to hear that.
So talking about therapy, that was really helpful for us to, because in the very beginning, we did not realize just how much our marriage was going to impact every single child, like, because they're all different. They all have different personalities. We were raised differently and we discipline different. Like, I yell a lot. I used to. I can't even do it anymore if I want to.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
My voice.
her voice, it sounds like her throat is
Worn
hurting.
out.
She's like, I don't know what
Worn
to do. I'm like,
It's ridiculous. So, but I used to yell a lot and he didn't. So we just had different styles, and therapy was very helpful for us to allow the kids to express themselves. And so I'm wondering if there's any resources that you guys have been using as far as like how to discipline or how to merge the families that you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to build off of what Chelsea said in terms of the bio parent taking lead in terms of disciplining, that is something that we've vocalized to the boys as well, so that they know that, and I've said straight out to her boys, I'm not here to be your parent. I'm not here to replace your dad, but I am here as an adult who really values and respect is important if our relationship is going to be positive. So, we've let the boys know, when Chelsea's in the room, Chelsea's your mom. When I'm in the room, I'm your dad, to my bio son. So we've made it clear to them so that they know. And then just being consistent and being aware of what they're going through. So sometimes taking a step back and not seeing it through our eyes, but seeing it through theirs, because that's really been opening up our eyes to what they're dealing with. Yeah. And when we're more aware of what they're dealing with, then we can have some empathy, and then the two of us can come back and have a conversation in private about what we're seeing or feeling, and then bounce some things back and forth off each other in terms of how to manage it moving forward. So full transparency, and then follow through and intentional actions.
Yeah. So one thing I'll add just to your question is the resources. So I have done work with a behavioral specialist who was able to come into our home and give us some really good tools and strategies. This was a long time ago. So, I mean, it was at the beginning of our relationship, basically when we first moved in together, would have been 2 years in, I think. Yeah. So we haven't done any like formal family therapy. And if I'm being honest with you, I think that in hindsight, we should have, and we probably dealt with a lot more than we had to, and had to learn things the hard way, as opposed to going to that resource, and if those resources are available. So I just want to say to like any blended family, like there's no shame in going for counseling. There's no shame in seeing a therapist. There's no, like, none of that. Therapy is good. Therapy is healthy. There's no shame in that. Cause that's something that, admittedly we are still exploring. Because issues come up and things happen, and I think especially right now with all the changes of the world and the things that are going on, we want to make sure that our kids know that they're supported not only by us, but by, potentially a therapist or, like those kind of outside resources. So definitely, I think that there is so much value, and looking back and thinking back on it, I would have definitely liked to have done more therapy. Yeah. Because you're right. Our kids need to be heard. Our kids need to be seen. Our kids need to have that attention. And I think that bringing in somebody that is, that doesn't have like a biased opinion on your family You know, it's not like they're asking an aunt or uncle, a grandparent, that type of thing. It's somebody that's going to, you know, be really supportive as far as I'm concerned and really open to hearing everything that they have to say. And it's a safe place. So yeah. So I'll just add that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your transparency with that, because I'm sure there's a lot of families who, you know, are a little apprehensive about going to see somebody, but and you guys are still, you know, because we didn't take our kids until our oldest was
there
like,
was a problem,
yeah,
right?
until it boiled over being into something that we couldn't really handle on our own. But I feel like it creates such a space, a different space of transparency for your kids. Like you talked about having a safe space. And because when you ask your kids like, oh, how are you feeling? What are you dealing with? And those things, like they don't, like your kids don't want to let you down. They don't want to disappoint you with something negative to say, even if, especially if it's about you. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to, there's only a certain extent of transparency that they'll give you. And a counselor, I don't know, they just provide that, that safety, you know, that I can really just kind of open up and tell how I really, really feel, you know?
Yeah, and they also, and I think, you know, our kids, they see us as like invincible, right? Like they don't hurt us, right? Like our feelings don't get hurt, you know? And I think it's also helpful for the parent, you know, because a lot of things, I mean, you're already dealing with, especially if you're like already dealing with the ex, and then maybe you're dealing with the in-laws or the extended family. And then now, you know, you guys have created this union out of love to benefit them. And then now you're getting this stuff inside your house. So you're kind of like, it could really put you in a
real
really
awkward,
weird space. That's not healthy for anybody. And so that's also a good space for that as well.
And when you have somebody who is licensed or who has experience in it, like they know like things to say, they know different phrasings, different wordings, and more extensive than we can, because we could be like, oh, you know, Mac, is everything all right? Oh yeah, everything's okay. Good. We good. I had our talk. Fine. There's nothing going wrong. You know, and a counselor could ask it in a different way, and they're just like, well, you know, to be honest, and you're like, how many times your kids come home from school and you're like, oh, how was school? Fine. You know what I mean? And you know that they've done so much other stuff. So I just think, you know, it's good to have somebody who is specialized, who's had training, you know what I mean, and experience with other families. So.
Yeah, and I think what we had to learn though too is that, because we were in therapy for years.
Yeah.
She
said it like
4 years. 4 years. We had to get to the point where we weren't so dependent on it either. So I don't want to sound contradictory, but one of the goals was for us as a family to learn how to communicate with each other, to learn how to, you know, set boundaries and deal with things out independent of that person at some point, right?
Because you have to, like, you can't just go to these sessions and just kind of take the benefits of it. You know, for this counselor to fix everything for you. You have to take your notes. You have to look and see what's working, what verbiage to use, and really just keep that in your mental bank, write it down or whatever you need to do, and try to mirror that system that works, you know?
Yeah, because I know Chelsea said something before when we were talking about they still need to know that we're the parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at some point, I think that especially my oldest daughter, I think she felt like I'm about to tell on you, like we're about to go in here, and this is, and it's like, so we still have our own mission or vision and values and things that we want to embed, and this is an added resource, but it's not the final thing.
Right.
And so, you know, if you guys wanted to share on that, because I know we talked about that before.
Yeah, so I just want to understand the question. So what you're saying in terms of like counseling or like therapy, are we still talking about?
Yeah, or even really just in general, because I think it is important for our kids to have a voice, but we are still, you know, the parents.
At a certain point, you have to pull the reins and say, hey, I still got the final say about this thing.
Right. We heard you.
Definitely. Okay, yeah. So on that, for sure. I think that ultimately we want our kids to have an opinion. We want their voices to be heard. So Garrett and I actually have family meetings with our kids. So we'll bring an issue, we'll put it on the table. For example, I'll use back to school because, we've been on a very extended break for a long time. So we were ready for the kids to go back to school, get back into routine, that type of thing. So we sat down with our kids and we were like, okay, let's talk about morning routine and night routine because it's going to have to become a thing now. I know. It's a lot. So we talked to our kids and, we asked them, we said, like, what do you think is a reasonable time for bedtime? What do you feel is this? What do you feel is that? And they laid it all out there. Like, there was all kinds of things that got said. There was like, oh, well, I can self-soothe. I can put myself to bed. You're like, okay, cool.
I've got an app on my phone that'll
yeah.
help me fall.
That's good. Yeah.
YouTube is not an app on your phone.
No. So, they have all of these different ideas. And so we listened and we heard them out. And then we said, okay, now it's our turn to deliberate. We will get back to you with what we decide. So we came back, made sure that we had the conversation away from them where they couldn't hear us, where, we were having an adult conversation and we came back to them and said, okay, listen, this is the time that we've decided on, taking into consideration this, and this, but ultimately this is how it is. And we laid that out to them. And for the most part, they were really receptive to it. I know that, there's always going to be those little comments that get made of like, oh, you're doing it this way because of this, or, oh, you're listening to him and you're not, whatever. There's always going to be those things. But I think it's just really, making it clear that you are acting in their best interest because you love them. You love all of them. And because now we're together, we're making those decisions together. I think it's hearing them out, knowing that they're they know that they're supported, but also, you have to lay down the hammer sometimes and just be like, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And I don't really owe you much more of an explanation than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's, we heard you, we hear you, but this is how, and that's how life works. So, life lesson all in one. See what you kids are getting?
You're learning so
life
much.
lesson. And
Exactly. And I think even in our discipline and, Keita letting me handle a lot of the girl stuff, at times or whatever, there was still situations where he was like, okay, I'm going to have to step in because this thing is like getting out of control.
No, I think, I think once it goes past to, all right, I heard you, and then you're trying to take it past that, then that's when I would step in, especially where I feel like, there was being disrespect kind of put towards my wife, because Garrett, as you said, like there's certain things we just have to understand, like I'm never going to replace this other person and things like that. So there are things that could be said or done to me that I could probably take more than my wife could. So when it's directed to my wife, then it's like, all right, we got to stop. This is not going in that route. It's no longer discussion, parent me child, child me parent, you know what I mean? Type of thing. Just to be that barrier,
Yeah. There's an obligation as parents that we have to teach them. And we will never replace a bio parent, but we still are required and responsible to teach them basic life respect rules. Yep. And I feel you so much, Akita, in that I will let the boys talk to their mom, but if they cross a line to where it is disrespectful, rude, obnoxious, inconsiderate, and flies in the face of how another human should treat another human, especially the one who gave you life, I'll step in there.
Yeah.
And remind them of the importance of respect. And because you're not only hurting your mom when you speak to her like that, you're hurting me because I love your mom, but you're also hurting yourself because you need to know that that is not okay. So there are moments where you gotta just step in. You have a limit, and when you get above it, then I'm gonna be I'm going to be taking a bit of a stance in there.
Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah.
key.
I will definitely say, I have one more question, but I will definitely say, for me, coming into it as a single mom, I wasn't single for that long, but I felt like it when I was married. So coming in, there is something to being married and having, Akita as a covering. And I didn't really know in the beginning how much I needed it. Like, I didn't really know that I needed him to help me figure out how to communicate with this other person, or
Yeah.
him to help me figure out how to, like, when things are getting heated and disrespectful and I'm going back and forth, there were certain things that I needed that I didn't really realize that I needed. And so, I think that
And I think it's for both of us, it's like a reprogramming that has to happen, right? Because we've been conditioned for so long in a certain way. We've been programmed to respond a certain way and to talk a certain way because that was the only way that we could get results. But then we got to be reprogrammed to think like, you can get results another way. If somebody says, "Oh, I hate this place and I want to leave," and I'm like, "All right, leave."
and I'm like, what? Where are you going?
So look, conversation is done. If you want to go, then just go. And I go in my room
and I'm stressed.
5 hours later, that person is still here. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
And
So
Letitia's like, that's my daughter. You can't just respond like that. Like, I'm not just letting her go.
Yeah.
Right.
Then like the fourth time, I kind of realized like she's not
Like,
going anywhere.
I'm like, they're not going. Look, here's the secret. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You
They
know
might
what I mean?
walk around the block and try to scare you a little. That's what my little
Yeah.
guy does. He's
Well,
like, I'm out of here.
I was
we've
about
had
to say,
those-
they actually have gone somewhere,
But not when I've said anything.
not when you said it though.
It wasn't because of me.
Yeah, we have funny stories.
Yeah.
For days. They're
Yeah.
funny now, but they
Yeah, they're funny now.
They're not funny at
Same
the
with
moment.
us. Yeah.
Because everyone is safe and
right.
Exactly.
right.
But what I did want to ask you guys is, I know we've been talking a lot about some of the challenges and some of the things that we learned along the way that we didn't necessarily expect. But I don't want to leave everybody feeling like blended families is so much work. I think marriage in general is work. Parenting in general is work.
Yeah.
But what has been your greatest joy, in blending your families?
You want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I can start. To me, it takes a village to raise a child. And I'll go back to words that actually Garret said in the very beginning of our relationship is the more people that can love you and love your kids in life, the better. And I'm talking about like genuine love, acceptance, no judgment, just pure awesome love. And for me, especially because my kids have kind of a little bit of a toxic family on the other side, to be part of a family that is very much like my own family, like my family, and be able to show my kids what I, ultimately, if I would have stayed in that relationship, I wouldn't have been able to show them that. But now there's like this second chance of being able to show my kids the type of life that is capable. Like that is, that's what it's what I'm trying to say. The more people that can love your kids, the better. And the more people and the more support system that they can have is huge. And so blending our family has been a blessing for so many reasons. And I think that, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
For me, it's been the learnings, and we just touched on it, that I've taken and the reflection that I've been able to do to become a better person and to grow. And I know that the boys are having to acknowledge some things as well.
Yeah.
So they're learning some things that they otherwise wouldn't learn about. They're learning patience, they're learning understanding, they're learning when to maybe just not say anything. So we've been blessed with a number of experiences that have taught us all these things that we otherwise wouldn't have ever learned. And who knows what would have happened in our lives because of that. So our motto and our mantra is blended to blessed. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, in the sense of like demystifying and removing that stigma of failure. It's not failure. Blended families are not failure. There's a ton of learning, growth, and opportunity that comes with them, but you have to be willing to accept those things. So that's been the biggest blessing for me, is just continuing to grow and learn and experiences that I otherwise wouldn't have had.
Yeah. And you really, like, there are no experiences like that. So
That's right.
yeah.
And I think one of the greatest stories, you know, they say that the birth of Christ was the greatest story ever told. But we were talking about this the other day, how Jesus was a stepchild.
Yes.
Like, come on now. Like, if that
doesn't motivate
yes.
you,
it is so
Blended families.
Yes.
Yes.
I know Joseph was like, whoa, hold on now. Wait a minute. So you're going to tell me the Holy Spirit.
He had another father.
Yeah, think about that for a
Right?
minute.
But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, just through the sacrifice that Joseph made, you know, with his own flesh and what he wanted to think and believe, look what that was able to create. You know, look at what even the story of Jesus's life and his journey, what he was able to do because of someone's sacrifice and someone's, you know, just being, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well,
obedient, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obedient to their calling, obedient to what they were meant to do in life, you know?
right.
And I think we have callings, you know, us as step parents and parents in general, we have we have callings to our children. We have calling to those within our sphere of influence, you know? So,
and Joseph's willingness to support Mary and love Jesus.
And him and God got along just fine. You know, they didn't have issues with each other, right? So, I mean, I think that helps. there was no, they didn't have a toxic relationship. So it's a lot for us to learn as step parents from that story.
Well, and that just goes to show that it's not always meant to be, it's not always about our plans. You know, you can plan to have like this perfect traditional family and all of these kids and whatever. Like, I know Garret, for example, I mean, he should have for sure had like 7 children because he's an amazing like he really is. But at the same time, you know, that wasn't in his cards. And so now he gets to be a father figure to 2 other children. And I mean, that's just what God had planned for his life. That's just, you know, he wasn't meant to have 3 or 4 or 5 children, but you know, Joseph wasn't made to have maybe a biological child or whatever, but look who he got to raise. Like, that's
exactly like
cool, you know? Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been an awesome conversation.
So good.
Really good.
Second time around is
it's always sweeter, right?
it's always
Yeah.
But so can you just, before we go, can you let everyone know how they can reach you, how they can contact you, the services and things that you guys offer?
You guys are really, really humble, but I don't know if our viewers catch that they are actually certified coaches.
Yes.
So you can actually reach out to them for coaching and help and guidance. So yeah, let us know how people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, as you mentioned off the top, Letitia, we're Transformed Couples. So you can find us on Instagram, transform.couples. We're also on Facebook, Transformed Couples Coaching. And then we're online at www.transformcouples.com. So what we do through our relationship coaching program is we work with couples to create, first and foremost, a clarity statement. So what does that couple want to feel? What do they want to experience? And what is their message to the world? Because what we've acknowledged and learned through our training is that when couples come together, they need to have a clear understanding of their goals. And when they do have that, making decisions becomes a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
So we offer a free clarity call. You can book that on our website. And then from there, we can talk through the different programs that we offer, and we do a relationship assessment tool. It's completely, non-bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's a survey that has been used by couples for over 40 years. It's helped over 1 million couples. And it is a complete
4 million couples.
4 million couples, sorry.
This many.
This many. And that becomes the foundation of the coaching program.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're telling you maybe what's going on in your relationship or what you need to change. Your answers actually tell us where your strength areas are, where your growth areas are, how assertive you are in your relationship, how much you maybe avoid confrontation or discussions that you shouldn't be avoiding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we work with you to help you create the tools and use the skills that we've learned to create greater relationship fulfillment, satisfaction, and at the end of the day, build your resilience as a blended family.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's amazing.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
awesome. That is awesome.
Yep.
So we want to thank you guys for coming on and conversating with us, chatting with us. We're sure
Mhm.
that we will be connecting with you in the future.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. We got to have you guys back again. I really think that this discussion was amazing, and there was so many like nuggets in here. I'm at to play it back and have my notebook out so I could take my notes. But thank you guys so much again. You're amazing. We wish the best to you guys, and yeah, we'll stay connected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for having us, you guys. It's so appreciated. And we're just so glad that we have people in this community that we can just bounce things off of and
Yeah.
lean on for support. And we're just so grateful for you.